Hey guys, I'm Joe. Let's talk about the cost of a Bradford fence. Hey guys, today we're going to talk all about pricing. We're going to talk about the 7 main aspects that contribute to the price of your fence. And as we all know, since 2020 and COVID, that pricing and inflation have been crazy. So with the fence in particular, we saw huge impact of price increases from 20 to 21 into 22. Thankfully, from 23 to 24, we've had some material price decreases, but we're going to talk about what that looks like now and what to expect in 2025 with the price of your fence. All right, so how much does a fence cost and what affects your cost of your fence? The first thing is the size of your yard or size of the fence. The second is the layout, how it lays out in each run of the fence. The third is going to be the type of fence, whether it's what material, the wood, chain link, vinyl, steel. The fourth is going to be the height and the style. The fifth would be the gates, how many gates, type of gates, what access you need. Then the sixth is going to be site conditions and things that we have to work around or consider in the installation process. And then the seventh would be whether you have an old fence to remove or not. All right, so let's jump into number one, the size of your fence, which would be the size of your yard. And in the context of a backyard, for a typical subdivision lot of a 1/4 acre to 1/3 acre lot, the average length is about 200 feet. And that's what we're always talking about as far as size for us is linear feet. So how many linear feet of fence that you have is usually the starting point of the size conversation. So 200 linear feet is a good average. Now that will depend on lot to lot or house to house. That's a good average. So if you're in a typical residential lot, you could plan for, say, 150 to 250 feet. Now, if you are up to like a 1 acre lot, again, it can depend on the location and orientation, but typically between 450 to 550 linear feet is about the size of a 1 acre lot backyard. If you're getting bigger, 1.5 acres, 2 acres, you could be looking at 700 plus feet. So those are some kind of typical ranges, but that is going to be the first factor is how big a fence do you need, specifically how many linear feet of fence are you going to need. All right, then the second is going to be what we would refer to as the layout. So that is how the fence runs. So is it one just straight run from end to end? Does it start at the house, have a corner, and then corner here, corner, corner, corner? All those different breaks in the fence and corners are going to contribute to the material that's going to be required, thus is going to contribute to the cost. So how does the fence lay out and how many starts, stops, corners does it have within that layout? All right, number 3 would be the type of fence, or specifically the material that you're using. So it could be whether it's chain link, wood, steel, vinyl, composite. All of those are going to contribute to what cost you're going to be looking at with what type of fence you're going to be using there. There's going to be some that are on the lower end of the spectrum and some that are on the higher end of the spectrum. Some of the more economical options are going to be like a residential chain link. Then from there, you're going to have wood options, then steel, vinyl, composite are typically going to be on the higher end of that spectrum. But there's also different considerations because there's benefits and limitations with those style options. Some of those with wood and things may have a lesser lifespan as opposed to a steel, vinyl, composite. They're going to be more of a cost investment, but are going to have a longer lifespan and less maintenance over time. All right, fourth is going to be the height and the style of the fence. There's various height options ranging from typically 4 feet up to 8 feet in most different options. So those are going to contribute to the price of your fence. Also the style, so depending on how ornate or different design options that you have in the style of your fence is also going to contribute to what the fence costs for you. All right, and then number 5 is going to be gates, specifically gate types and gate sizes. Gates can be some of the more expensive parts of a fence project, but they're also some of the most critical parts of a fence and can be the most frustrating part of a fence if they don't work properly. So considering one, what type of gate you need, either like a swing or a slide. Swing gates typically are going to be less than a slide gate. Slide gates typically are more expensive than a swing. Then also considering what type of access that you need into the fenced in area that you have. So you'll need, that will contribute to how wide of a gate that you need. Thus, a smaller gate is typically less than a wider gate. But you need to take all those into consideration when you're planning that and pricing your project for your gates. All right, then the 6th aspect is the site conditions, meaning probably various things. One, the access to the work area that we have, how close can we get our trucks and trailers, how easy it is for us to get material to the fence location where we're working. Also, how rocky the ground is, or trees and roots that we may have to be working around that affect the digging conditions. Also, if there's like retaining walls or landscaping that we're having to work around or attach to or coordinate with, can contribute to the cost. Also, concrete areas, if we're having to cross any paved concrete or anything and actually cut through, dig through, or attach to, those are all aspects that go into planning your project and affect the cost of it. The 7th would be removal. If you have an existing fence that you need for us to remove, then that would also be an additional cost that we could figure into your estimate. All right, so those are the 7 main aspects, but what you really came for was actually real numbers. So let's dive into the numbers of what your fence is going to cost. All right, so as we talked about those 7 aspects, I did go back and look at some numbers from the past couple years to give you a realistic range of what you may expect, or some averages that we had on different fence projects. So to break that down, in 2023, our average job size was $6,400. So that could range from small projects that were, $1,500 to a couple $1,000 to multiple thousand, even into some commercial jobs can be into like multiple six figure. But again, just an average for 23 was about $6,400. Now, we did have some material price decreases from 23 to 24. So the average job for 2024 was around $5,500. And so that's kind of where we were through last year of an average. Right now, thankfully, over the last year and a half, prices have been stable. Thankfully, the years past with COVID, some of that stuff was changing daily, hourly. So things have been stable. I was just talking to one of our reps yesterday that they project that in 2025 things will continue to be pretty stable. We will probably see some small increases, maybe a few percentage points, up to about 5% increase. But you could expect that it'd be close to an average for 2025, close to that 24 average of potentially about $5,500. But again, it depends on all those aspects. So based on material or per foot price, I went back and looked, and so total range per foot, you could be anywhere from $13 a foot on up to close to $200 a foot, depending on what type of fence that you choose. That lower end is more of probably like the chain link and wood. So with chain link specifically, there's about a range in a per foot price of about $13 a foot to $30 a foot. And then I looked at that on a project basis. So on a project basis, again, considering an average of 200 feet, that's just kind of an average yard. Yours could be more or less, but on an average of 200 feet with a couple of gates, chain link project would expect to be between $4,000 to $8,000. $4,000 being more of like a 4-foot residential fence, 8,000 being more of maybe a security fence, more commercial setting for an average of 200 feet. In wood, per foot price would range from about $22 to $60 plus, and on a project basis of an average of 200 feet. On a typical like 6-foot privacy, could be between $5,500 to $6,500. Now, if you did some common upgrades like steel post or cedar pickets, that may be more of a range of $6,000 to $9,000, again at that 200-foot average. Then on steel, per foot is going to range between typically $35 to $50 a foot, and on a project basis with a couple gates and things, I would expect to be between $9,000 to $12,000 on a regular 200-foot job. On vinyl, there's a range with vinyl, because with like a rail fence vinyl versus like a privacy, there is some cost difference, but it ranges from $17 a foot to $100 a foot, and again depends on the type. But so with like a ranch style fence on a project basis of 200 feet, maybe more around like the $7,000 range, could range up to about $15,000 with maybe like a more of a vinyl privacy style. And then on a composite or a Trex, per foot is going to range from 90 to about 120 plus, depending on the options. So on a average 200-foot yard with a couple of gates, you're going to be looking at between $20,000 to $25,000 for a good quality composite fence. Again, on another Perimtech or fence track option, which is another composite option that utilizes a steel post with a composite board, that's going to range between $100 to $170 a foot. And then on a project of 200 feet with a couple gates would be around the range of $23,000 to about $37,000. So that's kind of some, I'd say some real numbers of looking at some past data and what I would expect to see this year. Again, those are more broad ranges, and those aspects that we talked about as far as size, layout, gates are all going to affect what that is. So for more information though, you can check out our website. Our website has a tool on it that again won't give you an exact number, but if you put in your exact layout and measurements and make a selection of your style, it'll give you a more dialed in range of you could expect from this to this. And then from there, we'd love to talk to you about your specifics and get exact measurements for you so that we can provide an exact price for your project. All right, thanks for joining us today. I hope that was helpful looking at the pricing of your project. If you have any other questions or need any other information, please visit our website or call or text our office. We'd be happy to talk about your project specifics. But again, hopefully that's helpful in helping you plan and budget for your fence project. Make sure and like this video, it helps us out a ton, and subscribe to the channel for more fences just like this.